Peace be with you. On this beautiful day. It's so good to have you all here. And we also welcome online and in present the people of Plymouth Congregational Church too, as we will be combining for these 4 weeks of July together, the first 2 weeks here and the second 2 weeks of July over at our sister congregation of Plymouth. So good to have you here. Today I want to talk about winners and losers. I have to brag a little bit to the people of Plymouth. We had a huge victory here last week at Payson Park. We passed a historic, first time in 112 years, historic victory vote to provide clean air and ventilation throughout our entire building. Not just for our church gatherings, but for our preschool, for the scouts that are here, for various dance groups, for the Folk Art Center. And it was an incredible vote, not just for the building, but for this community, a vote of hope into the future. So, yeah, hooray! I want to thank especially our property committee. We're working more than 2 years on this. All of you have been to committee meetings, right? We're talking hundreds of hours, lots of contractors talking over the years. And I thank also our presenters that we had, Rob Baxter from the property. We had Kamiko, also our preschool director, present, and especially the members that showed up last Sunday here and online to vote for hope, and when I think about, so that's winners and losers, and I think about losers, I go back to my childhood because I used to play ice hockey, and sometimes we would lose, but my heart was broken this past year when my beloved Boston Bruins, traded Brad Marchand. What a horrible mistake. They traded him to a place where there is no ice. Florida. What kind of pond hockey do you have in Florida? It's just horrible. And so the vision this year that's seared into my mind is Brad Marchand at some hotel lobby in Florida hoisting the Stanley Cup champion, which is the oldest champion cup trophy in the world. It's the oldest sports trophy for professional teams in the world. Has the crowds around him chant, "Thank you, Boston. Thank you, Boston," just kind of rubbing it in our face. Winners and losers, winners and losers. So thank you so much, Tom, for sharing us today, our reading today. And that can seem like winners and losers, what he's talking about. In chapter 9, before what he read from chapter 10, in chapter 9, Jesus was sending out the 12 disciples to all the people who already knew God, those in the 12 tribes, 12 traditional tribes of Israel. And now in chapter 10, there are 72 sent out, according to the most ancient text, 72 disciples sent out to what is the traditional reading from Genesis 10 of the 72 Gentile nations of the world. Gentile, those who did not know God. So it's the first mission is to Israel, the people of God, and the second mission for the disciples to go out to all the world, the people that don't know God already. So what are the results? The 72 come back, they're very excited and say, "Victory! Victory!" Even the demons, they submit to us, and we could do healings. Miracles were happening. And we said, "Peace to this house." And there was peace when they were ready for it. And then we would say, "The kingdom of God has come near you." You know, even the forces of evil are submitting to us. Victory, winners and losers. This weekend, our nation celebrates the victory of July 4th. In our revolutionary world, the song, "The World Turned Upside Down," a small group of colonies defeats the empire of the world. That's what the British, the sun never set on the British Empire, freeing us from the power of tyranny, freeing us from kings who are above the law and to dictate whatever they want without regard to the welfare of the people. This is indeed a victory worthy of many barbecues and family gatherings and fireworks and remembrance. At the same time, we also need to remember there are losers within this victory. Before the Civil War in 1852, the famous African-American Frederick Douglass was chosen to speak on July 4th. And Douglass said that the founders of our nation are indeed great people and had wonderful ideals of freedom and liberty for all. But he asked, but what to the slave is the 4th of July? And he went on to talk about all these blessings that people are enjoying was not his to enjoy. He said, the sunlight that has brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. And that was back in 1852. Today, in many ways, we are still living out that legacy in this very uneven way. There's a famous 2015 study done by the Federal Reserve in Boston. You probably have heard a very famous study that was done. And what they looked at the net worth for white households in the metro Boston area in 2015, kind of generational wealth that is passed along. And for the white families, it was $247,500, like $250,000 can be passed on. And you probably remember, what is the value for African-American families in the Boston area? $8. Just eight. Legacy of slavery, legacy of white privilege that continues and echoes here. And we can do small things. I know I'm really proud our congregation chose to, whenever we sing a spiritual, people cannot pass on generational wealth from spirituals with copyrights and royalties. And we are privileged to take an offering and pass on that royalty to a place in Boston that will educate and teach people of color in the ways of music and help to launch their careers for them. Winners and losers. The gift of democracy, which we do celebrate this weekend, this July 4th weekend, was anticipated in many ways by a visitor to the United States back in the 1830s and 40s, Alex de Tocqueville. He came from France, and he celebrated this incredible energy and this freedom, this industry of Americans just keep trying things and failing, and all this wonderful churning. He also warned us that the US democracy system with majority wins all, unlike the parliamentary systems of Europe and other parts of the world, but majority wins all leads to polarity. And he foresaw a time, sometime in the future, when opposing parties would become caricatures of each other and incredible attacking, and you have a polarized nation instead of this wonderful community. Today, maybe we're there. Maybe we're in this incredible polarized world that de Tocqueville warned about. From my point of view, I'm trying to understand the other side of the polarity. I say, how can I, as a follower of Jesus, be in support of a tax cut to the very rich and a tax increase upon the poorest? It's hard for me to understand that. And how can I, as a follower of Jesus, support the stripping away of health care to 11 million of the poorest of people who are 9 out of 10 of them are hardworking people by all statistics? It's hard for me to understand the other in the circumstance says, I seek to be a disciple of Jesus and to follow Jesus' commands of love and justice and compassion in this world. But we are divided as a nation, winners and losers. People on opposing sides wanting to cancel the others out because, as de Tocqueville noted back in the 1830s, in our system, majority takes all. That was the danger he foresaw back then. When the 72 returned to Jesus, reporting with joy the victory over the forces of death and evil, they were not celebrating majority takes all. The 72, bringing the mission of God to those who did not know who God, the God of love, they were not dividing people into losers and winners. They were not delighting in canceling out, oh, you didn't know God. We do. Let us share what we know now. It was not, peace be with you was not like, you're wrong. You're wrong. Listen to the mission of the 72. Peace. Peace be this house. They would enter that house and live with them. They would go to the house of the other. People so unlike them, they were worshiping the wrong God. They were just so different, so different, so different. They would say the kingdom of God has come near. Somehow in that coming together, something can happen. God is close to us. Miracles can happen. Change can happen. The mission of the 72 comes alive for me in a recent book named Calling In. I don't know if you've heard of the book Calling In. Calling In. It's by Loretta Ross. Actually, the full title is a really long title. Calling In, How to Start Making Change with Those You Would Rather Cancel. Isn't that a great title? Calling In, How to Start Making Change with Those You Would Rather Cancel. It's a hard book to read. Loretta was the director of the Washington, D.C. area Rape Crisis Center. And a number of years ago, her Rape Crisis Center received a letter from William Fuller. William Fuller, who was serving a life sentence for the rape and murder of a black school teacher. And his letter to Loretta, who was the head of the Rape Crisis Center taking care of women, went like this. Outside, I raped women. Inside, I raped men. I'd like not to be a rapist anymore. So Loretta and the staff first received this letter. Their reaction, she was just so angry. How dare this monster ask us for help? We're here for the people that have been wounded, not him. There's a rage and disgust. And Loretta herself, like many of those that work at the Rape Crisis Center, was herself a victim of such violence. And they talked about the letter, and they talked. And she wanted to go and scream at him and yell at him. How dare you do this to people? I have been so wounded. So many people. We're here to help the wounded. So despite her incredible anger at the other, despite her own traumatic hurt from the other, she found herself driving out to visit him. Driving to Lorton Reformatory Prison, the notorious prison in Northern Virginia, to visit William Fuller. Now, Loretta was only 26 years old as she walked through the doors of that prison and entered this secure facility. And as the doors locked behind her, she she asked herself, what am I doing here? I'm walking into a very, very dangerous place. And then when she found out the room she was being led to, she thought it would just be William Fuller. And inside, she was led to the room, the door locked behind her, 6 very large, bulked up, muscular men. The door was locked behind her. They said they had formed a new group called Prisoners Against Rape, and they wanted Loretta to help them. That Friday was the beginning of Loretta's weekly Friday meetings for over 3 years to meet with this group of men at this notorious prison. That Friday, Loretta and these men began sharing how they all, and so many of us, have been hurt traumatically by these ways of violence. That Friday, Loretta and the men, they said, teach us what you know. She began to teach them feminist theory and theology, what was helping support them in their work at the Rape Crisis Center. And that Friday, these men began to heal and grow, freeing themselves from this rape culture. And that Friday, as Loretta looks back on it, she herself didn't know how wounded she was. And she also began to heal and change and come out of her prisons of anger and resentment and wanting to get back. The ways that she didn't know she was so wounded and trapped herself. So Loretta calls this process calling in. Instead of calling out the other, you monster, and canceling them out. And in this case, I could not blame her for doing that if she had done that. She said, more and more, we need to do this more and more. Instead of canceling out the other, call them in. Sit down with them. Talk with them. Peace be with this house. 10 years after Loretta had left the Rape Crisis Center, she was walking down a street in Washington, D.C., when she heard a voice shouting her name behind her, a very deep male voice. And it was William Fuller, rushing towards her, running towards her. For many years, this had been her nightmare. She had only been able to sleep when she returned from that Lorton prison, because she knew that these people were locked up for life. They would never be on the street. And here he was running towards her on the street. And he had his arms out like she didn't know, maybe hug her, but he had learned. And he stopped and he said, can I hug you or not, or should I stand here? And she was like, just stand there. And the words just poured out of William. He had been paroled. He'd gotten married. He was now working in construction. He held up his lunch bucket to say, look at that, a lunch bucket. I have a job. Isn't this great? Isn't this wonderful? He said he continued reading. He was sparked by her interest in education. He had gone back to school, and he thanked her again and again and again for all that she had done, for coming into that prison, for meeting with him and the others, for all the work that they had done together. He said, Loretta, you have changed my life. You have changed my life. And Loretta later realized that she was not the one who changed him. Rather, the two of them together. That changed him, it changed her. It changed her so she could let go of her incredible anger over her incredible trauma in her life. Loretta says, we need someone else to show us how to do this. We all need a little bit of space, a little bit of time, a little bit of grace. Let's practice this calling in, this calling in. The 72 disciples returned to Jesus and said, even the demons have submitted to us, the demons of rage, of anger, the demons that keep us apart from the other, the demons of people who do not know God, who do not know the God of love that can bring healing and transformation and change, even if those we had known have been lost, even when we ourselves know we are lost. Jesus said, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. I have seen incredible victory in what you've done, and saying, calling in peace to this house. Truly, truly, the kingdom of God has come near. Our challenge is to join with the 72 and Loretta. Peace. Peace be with you.